Welcome to the Sales After Dark. Victor Antonio here. Who do we have? Brian from Las Vegas, man. Hey, Brian, what's happening? There you are, man. I got to get a light background going on back here. Maybe I can help you out. But anyway, Brian. Also, Chad Stingley, man. What's happening, Chad? Got you there, right there. What's up, Victor, my man? Appreciate your teachings. Thank you. We got somebody with a very long name. Mari Carmen Garcia Lopez. Welcome. Mari Carmen, where are you from? Let me know. Déjame saber. Let me know. My man Ade Undufa from Kuala Lumpur, man. Good to have you. Jenna Benarba says, I'll read that for you. Victor, I can't thank you enough for all of your inspiration. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time, Jenna. We got Chad Stingley. Love it, man. Out of Chicago, Illinois, now in Phoenix, Arizona. Selling baby. There you go. My girl, Mia Knox. Los Angeles in the house. Mia Knox is in the house. Ade's back at you. Victor M. selling a platform that helps people manage your life and business. How do I sell in this COVID-19 environment? Good question. By the way, I'll be taking a lot of questions towards the end. I just got a little bit to show you, and then we're going to get into some questions and answer. Christopher Pacheco, good evening, Victor. Checking in from Arizona, ready to absorb what you have for us today. I think you'll like it, man. I think it's interesting stuff. Hey, Yakub Pasha, this sales manager from India. Oh, this is just for you. This live stream is just for you. Yusuf Sadi Khan, all the way from Egypt. One of my favorite places, Sharm el Sheikh. Been there twice, Yusuf. Love it, man. I love Sharm el Sheikh. It's a beautiful place. All right, we got La Pastora, my girl, Yasmin. Did you see this, Yasmin? Beautiful gift. By the way, Puerto Rico. My family's from Puerto Rico. I get this question all the time. Where are you from, Victor? Family's from Puerto Rico. Barranquitas y Ay Bonito. So if you know the area, let me know. So, hola, right back at you. Jesus in the house. Hey, Victor. Victor Tan, the man, is in the house. I've missed you, man. Where have you been? Chris Herrick. He is from Milwaukee. B2B is my thing. Love it. The cheese state. Does that offend people when you say the cheese state? I don't think so, right? Glenn Hopkins, looking good. Trying to do my best here, Glenn. Trying to fake it till I visually make it. But anyway, today we got Kamlis Sawan says, good morning. Love that. Thank you, man. Right back at you. Sending you love right back. And we got, let me see, we got some cool people. Gilbert, Arizona with Craig Ward. Thank you for joining me, man. Bridget. Now we're complete. We got Victor Tan. We got Brian. We got a few other folks. Beautiful. So anyway, man, again, Yusuf, big heart right back at you, man. Thank you. All right, so today I got something for you. It's a study that I came across, and it talks about B2B sales managers and how their job is transforming. So I'm going to show you some data, and we're just going to walk through some data. And then after that, you guys can ask me all kinds of cool questions. And as you know, I like to give you content first, and then we'll get into some questions and answers. So again, if I don't get your questions right away, just hang in there. I'll be right back at you. So anyway, check out this data I got for you. So I am a fan of Gartner. If you don't know who Gartner is, go to Gartner, as in G-A-R-T, like Gartner. Gartner.com. Gartner is a research company, and they focus on a lot of different businesses. But I love their studies. I love their research because it's real research. And one of the things I want to emphasize is that too often, and I'll talk about it today, is that people give you their opinions about what they think is happening in the market. What I love about Gartner is that they go out and actually do studies, like ask companies what's going on, and that is what I love. I love data. I don't like anecdotal stories and opinions. That's too easy. So I took a screenshot of this slide. What I'll do is I will post a link to the actual webinar. It's like an hour and a half webinar. It's really good if you're a B2B sales manager or if you're a VP of sales, you want to watch this one. It's a great one. It's got Brent Adamson and Nick Tolman talking about how the manager in a B2B situation, scenario, environment is changing. But some of the data points, and I thought this was like the best slide. This one captured everything. So I thought I'd share this with you guys, man. Let me know what you think. I'm going to go through all the bullet points. I'll try to be quick, but there's some fascinating insight. If you're a manager, you're probably going to say, I know, Victor, that's exactly what's happening to me. If you're a salesperson, you're going to be able to sympathize with your manager more. And if you're a VP of sales, you'll be able to understand your managers that much more. So it's a little bit for everybody. And if you're wondering, well, Victor, I'm in B2C. How does that impact me? I don't know. It may help you, may not, but hang out. It's going to be a good time anyway. And then towards the end, we'll ask questions. You can ask me all your questions. All right, so the first one, and then I'll have to zoom in. By the way, before I forget, you know the deal. Subscribe right there. Hit the little bell if you want the subscription. And check out the Sales Velocity Academy, okay? Now, let's go into some of this data. The first one I want to highlight here is, and I'm going to just walk through the data, increasingly large and diverse buying groups. In other words, they looked at external trends. So we're looking at external trends looking out into the market, right? And so here's what they found out, that the buying group size has increased by 106%, and since 2003, it now requires 11. Let me hit you with that. It requires 11 people in a B2B complex sale to make a buying decision. 11 people. This is amazing. I mean, I remember when it was at 5, 6, and maybe when it was 9, but now we're at 11 people. And a lot of this is making sense in my head because some of the people that are now coming to the table are chief information officers, lawyers, because data is becoming more precious and people want to protect their privacy. So now all of a sudden you got lawyers getting involved because of the GDPR, which is the general practices for data protection. And all of a sudden more people are coming to the table, which makes the selling situation that much more complex. Now this is interesting. I got to tell you a story. It's not a story. It's just something that happened the other day. I heard this sales guru. Notice I always put sales guru like that. Sales guru say that, it's not about really going in there and understanding the customer's pain or challenging them. It's all about relationships. He goes, and the way I sell and the way you should sell is to go in there and just make friends with the customer and sell them. Now, he's not wrong. If it's a one-on-one B2C or one-on-two B2C type situation. But in a B2B environment, you can't make friends with 11 people. It's just not possible. It's almost impossible to do that. And so keep in mind that relationship selling, again, it's in a B2B situation, relationships is a result of you helping the customer expand their business or grow their business. Said another way, people don't want relationships up front. Companies don't want you to come to them and say, hey, I want to be your friend and let me talk about your dogs and your hobbies. What they want is to know, can you help me? Can you as a vendor, supplier help me? And if you can help me, then, and only then, once I know you can help me, do I want a relationship with you? A relationship is a result of you being able to prove that you can help them. But keep in mind, that's 11 people per client. So think about it. If you got more than one client, that's 11 times you get the idea. Second data point right here. And I thought this was interesting. Complex versus nonlinear buying. And what does that mean? In other words, 96% of buyers revisit at least the process one more time. What does that mean? Back up. We often think that a sales process is very linear. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. But it doesn't work that way. Sometimes the buyer goes through certain steps and has to go back and revisit some. Go back, revisit, go back, revisit, go back, revisit, go back, revisit. And what they're saying is the majority of the time, 96% of the time, the buyers are actually going back and forth. Now, this is known as a spindle effect. Spindle. You practice spindling. Yes, you do. Here's how you practice spindling. Because if you think about it, when you go on to Amazon, for example, has this ever happened to you? You go on to Amazon and let's say you want to look up a camera, right? A DSLR camera. And you go, oh, I think Canons are great. Let me go up and look at a Canon. So you go up to there and look at a Canon, right? And so typical buying process is I'll do the research, look at the Canons, look at my options, look at the price, make a decision. But here's what typically happens. You go to Amazon, you look at the DSLR, you look at the Canon, and all of a sudden, right below it says, people who bought this also bought what? These three down here. So then you click on that one. And what is that? I've never heard of that brand. You click on it, and then you go down that rabbit hole, and then they show you three more options. You click on that, you go down that rabbit hole, and then you decide, well, let me go back to the Canon originally. You go back to the Canon, but then you go back to that one, then you go back to that one. That's the spindling effect, and that's what's happening in selling today. That buyers are bouncing all over the place, which makes it that much more difficult for us to sell in a linear process. So in other words, this whole thought process that a buying cycle is linear, debunked, doesn't exist. Now, this one right here, this is a data point. This is a data point. This was like one of those, type of thing. It said, customers only spend 17, I know you can't read that, but 17 of their total buying time meeting with suppliers. Whoa. I mean, I want you to think about that. They spend 17% of their buying time meeting with a supplier. What does that mean? Let's really break this apart because this is kind of shocking. So in other words, if let's say I'm researching buying something, let's say a giant CRM or SaaS platform, whatever, it's a $500,000 system, right? I will spend literally 83% of my time researching myself. 83% of the time I'm researching myself. And the last 17% of the time I have, I'll actually reach out to vendors. Now, you don't get the whole 17 because if they're looking at 3 different vendors, you might get 5% of their buying time, which means you now have less time with the actual vendor. In other words, face time to talk to them about their product or service. This is incredible. But think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? There's so much information online that the customers want to do the research themselves before reaching out to a vendor. What's happening is that research online is getting longer and longer. Now at this point, it's 83%. And the last 17% is spent contacting vendors to say, hey, come in and show us what you got. So in other words, we don't have a lot of time. Now, the next one, even more mind-blowing, this one right here, this is the interesting one because one of the things we've been told is information, right? Significantly increase volume of higher quality information. 89% of customers say they encounter high quality information. What does that mean? What they're saying is, like 5 years ago, it was hard to find quality information on the internet. But now, almost 90% are saying, I'm going online and all this quality content is out there. And there's so much quality content that I can find what I want. If you tie it back to salespeople, why do I need to talk to salespeople if the quality of content is what I want? Now, here's the subtlety. Let me tie 2 things together. They want to spend less time with vendors. They want to do the research by themselves, but they also have a lot of information. See, this is where you as a salesperson become valuable because what happens is there's so much content up there, so much high quality content, you would think they could make a decision by themselves because there's a lot of quality content online. The problem is there too many choices. There's too much content. And because there's too much content, too much quality information, they don't know. Like one study can say A, B, C, and B is best. But then you read this other study that says A, B, C, C is best. And there's these different conflicting studies. So customers are having a hard time saying, okay, well, who's right, who's wrong? Which study do I believe? So all of a sudden, you, the salesperson, have become more valuable. This is the good news, that you, the salesperson, are more valuable because there's so much great content out there. Customers are absorbing it, but there's so much of it, they're confused as to how to make a buying decision. So this is what's happening in the market, right? And so this is what sales managers have to deal with their salespeople. Let's go through it. More people in the buying cycle, right? In the buying decision, 11, right? Buyers are not linear. They bounce back and forth, so that means it's hard to forecast deals. This one, 17% of the time is spent with suppliers, which means customers do most of the research and then spend a little bit of time talking to you, which is why it's hard to get access today to customers. And last but not least, there's so much quality content out there. They can do the research, but at the end of the day, they still need you, that 17%, to actually make a buying decision. This is what's happening out there, and this is what managers have to train their people on. But now let's look at the manager's role inside the company. This is what managers are dealing with. I mean, think about this. This is what they're dealing with. But let's look at what's happening internally to a manager. Let's begin to tie some of this together. On the internal side, check this out. Greater internal coordination required 2.3x increase in the size of sales teams' portfolio. What does that mean? What it means is that now salespeople have 2.3 times the amount of products to sell. Think about that for a second. Now, if you've been in sales management like I have, if you've managed salespeople like I have, giving salespeople more product is kind of a tricky situation because when you give them more product, what typically happens? They get more product, but now they have to sell more and you have to train them more. But we also know that salespeople only like to sell what they already know, right? So there's always that fight of getting in to sell new product. So new products are being developed and they're being tossed over to the salespeople, and now salespeople have to figure out how to sell this. Think of the manager. The manager now has to train his salespeople on how best to do this. Next, there's the manager spending more time navigating internal politics. On average, spend 7 hours navigating the internal resource. In other words, fighting with their own company. Tell me if you know what I'm talking about, right? Because that happens a lot, right? Typically, we have to kind of work within the company just to get things moving. So managers now have to deal with not only training their salespeople, but also dealing with the internal friction of a company. Next, this one was also very interesting. Greater availability of data. By the way, if you read my book on artificial intelligence, this is where it's going. It's all about data analytics and dashboards. Now they're looking on average at 4.2 different dashboards. What does that mean? Poor managers. Now they have to have all these different reports. They're looking at all these different dashboards to actually indicate how their sales are doing, what deals are going to close, what deals are not going to close, what forecasts are real, what are not. And so all of a sudden, sales managers are overwhelmed because they're trying to look at all these different dashboards to try to figure out what's going on with their sales. And again, as the data starts coming in, as we begin to use more data analytics, it becomes more of a complex situation, and sales managers have to figure out, how do I manage data? That's one of the biggest challenges managers in the future will have, is how do you manage the data? And then what data do I look at to understand how to hit my numbers? And then the last one, I think it's just an interesting one. Larger sales teams to manage. So on average now, it's increased by 16% since 2003. They're now averaging 7.5 salespeople. They now have to manage 7.5 salespeople. Let me slow down, because that seems easy, but it's not. For example, if you manage one person, that's great. That's easy. I can manage one person. But let's say that on average, that one person has 10 accounts. One salesperson, 10 accounts. But I also told you that the average account has 11 decision makers. That's a lot of people within just one account. Now imagine 10 accounts per salesperson. You can do the numbers. Now imagine you have 7.5. Let's just say 7 people. As a manager, you have 7 people under you. Each of those 7 have 10 accounts. Okay? That's 70 accounts. Now you take 70 and multiply it by 11 decision makers per account, and those are the type of, that's the situation you're dealing with. It becomes more complex. Remember back in the day when it was only 3 or 4 decision makers? Then you can figure out who the key decision makers were and really focus in on those key decision makers, which typically was 1 or 2 people. But today, now 4 or 5 at a minimum are going to be involved, but up to 11 could be involved in any sale. So what's happening now is that the job of sales manager has gotten more complicated. And one thing I liked about this webinar is it really highlighted some of the external issues they're facing. The external is how people are buying, but then some of the internal issues is, how do we manage our business when the complexity continues to increase? In other words, more products in the portfolio. We have to manage internal resistance, friction, just to get anything done. We also have to manage more data, and we also have to manage more people. How do we deal with all this? And in that webinar, again, I'll post a link within this on the live stream feed on YouTube, so you guys can actually click it and watch it. And if you're a B2B sales manager, I think this is worth your time, because I think this is important data, and it really highlights how complicated selling is becoming, especially if you're a manager. Also, last but not least, think of this. If you have to train your salespeople and coach them, how much more complicated is that going to be for you? Like if you have 10 salespeople, I mean, how do you find the time to coach 10 people? And how much time should you dedicate to coaching these people? So again, I think the role of the sales manager is getting stretched, and I think it's becoming more complicated, which means they deserve more money, right, if they perform. But I think they need to figure out, how do they manage their bandwidth, or how do they manage, how they orchestrate their market strategy. In other words, how they go to the market. So anyway, wanted to share this data with you. I know, a little dry, a little boring, I get it. But I think it's still fascinating to look at this and see what's going on in businesses today. The big message here is, big job that's now more complicated for sales managers. So check these guys out over at Gartner. That was, again, Brent Adamson and Nick Tolman who did the webinar. And on that, I will take questions from you guys. All right, so let me see if I can back up a little bit to make sure I got everybody. And then what I'll do is, let me close this out. And then I'll just see if I can bring up a white screen. Perfect. And we're good to go. So let me just do that. Love it, man. All right, so let me see. Make sure I got everybody here. Chad, you said the topic speaks to you. Let me know what you think of that data, Chad, because I think it's really interesting data. Ronald Padilla from the Philippines. Hi, Victor. Good morning. Greetings all the way from the Philippines. Love the Philippines, man. Hi from Montreal. I know you hate that. 17%. I spend more time untangling than I do selling. Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. Got a nice thumbs up. Love it. Ade, how do you prepare for a sales interview? I know you've done a podcast on it before on YouTube. Just wondering if you have fresh data on preparing for a sales interview. Thanks, Victor. I don't think it's about data so much as it is about research. Big difference, right? The data is like you're just trying to find some information, but I think it's research into the actual position. One of the things I always urge, and I think you've heard this on my podcast before, if you're doing a sales interview, right? If you're doing a sales interview, the first thing you have to do literally is first of all, do the research on LinkedIn, find out who the company is. Learn about the company, learn about the products, learn about their issues. But when you go in there, again, use the challenger approach. Take control of the conversation. Ask them, what are they looking for? What are your expectations for the new, let's say it's a sales position. By the way, for the salesperson coming in, what are your expectations? And then ask them about the person who was there before. Like, what did they do? And some people are afraid to ask these questions because it seems like you're being too nosy. No, you want to know what you're getting into. Remember, you have power too in that interview, and that is you don't need to take the job. Right? And so I want to know, I said, by the way, so the person who had this position, what were some of the things they didn't do that you think they should have done, right? Or what are some of the things they should have executed on? You can word that better. And then what are your expectations in the first 3 to 6 months? You know, typically, and then I would ask, what's your product life cycle? How long does it take to close a deal, right? Because I want to know, is the quota realistic? One of the things we have to ask ourselves is the quota realistic? In other words, can I really sell this amount of money, this number? Because sometimes it's unrealistic. So keep that in mind, that find out a lot about the position and then find out what they're looking for. But let them do all the talking. If you ask a lot of great questions, they'll give you all the answers you need. So hopefully that helped a bit. All right. So Glenn Hopkins, spot on. Herding a room full of cats is challenging. How do you suggest we collaborate with the 11-member whilst keeping them engaged in the process? That's a tough one, right, Glenn? Because how do you herd 11 cats, each with their own interests? You know, before you could do you remember the Miller-Heilman thing, which it was very simple. For some reason, my board went offline. That's fine. You know, remember the Miller-Heilman where they had certain people on there, Glenn? They only had like 4. You had a management buyer, you had a user buyer, you had a technology buyer, and you had an economic buyer. You typically had 4 buyers. So you can figure out 4 buyers, what are their motivations, the reasons for buying, their whys, and their why not. Now, if you just try to do a matrix on 11 people, it's not going to work. So I think we have to get back to this mode of how do we find out what everybody agrees on? See, that's the tough part, is trying to get everybody to agree on certain things. And I think as a salesperson, what we need to find, if you can do the overlapping rings, almost like a Venn diagram of 11 people, what are the top 3 things that we all agree on need to be done? And maybe that's where you start with points of agreement. That's the easiest answer I can give you because it's a tough deal. I would combine that with, I would still find within those 11, you and I know that within those 11, there's probably 2 or 3 people that really drive the decision. And those are the 2 or 3 people I would look to say, you know, what are the 2 or 3 things that everybody would agree that needs to be done, especially in the first phase, if it's a long B2B cycle product, in the first phase to do that. And then maybe you'll start getting some answers. That's my short answer on that one, Glenn. So I don't know. You give me some feedback. Let me know what you think. Love to hear what you think. Jesse Reyes has made it. Wonderful. Thank you. Cup of tea is in the house. Thank you, Cup of tea, for being in the house. And so as you're looking at the management, I guess, skill sets for today, what does it take to be in management? It's a very difficult task. And so what I'm seeing is that managers are finding themselves in a situation where they have to do all the paperwork, do all the reports, but try to manage people in the field. But the problem is that the people in the field need more help because it's harder to get access to the right people. And so those are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing. Jeffrey Anthony, batten up. Victor, there are so many B2B SaaS sales process school of thought. I think for example, the Sandler system, the SaaS process, sales as a science. I like sales as a science, by the way. The Sandler one's been around for a while. Which approach do you suggest for startups? That's such a tough one, Anthony. Because they each have their strengths and their weaknesses, right? Sandler's been around for a while, but I think they've also tried to like upgrade their system quite a bit. You can still use the Challenger sale. I think the Challenger sale is one of the strongest ones. Still, I think the Challenger sale is the strongest one. And I read a lot, Jeffrey, and I've yet to find something as comprehensive or as insightful as the Challenger sale. And I'm really looking for that next sales process that's for today's business. But I still think that the Challenger sale has it right. You should read the book that goes with it, The Challenger Customer. On the other side, those two books will give you some insight. And if you're not familiar with the Challenger sale, it really talks about how you have to teach for differentiation. You got to tailor for resonance, as they said, and then to take control of the conversation. But they really highlight how that style of selling, insight selling, pushing customers a little bit, really is what customers want from you today. Give them some insight. So why don't you check those out? Check out the Challenger sale and then get back to me and let me know what you think. I like spin selling from the Huthwaite Company. I like the Sandler system. Again, what's the other one? The Miller-Heilemann system, right? Conceptual selling and some of the others. They're all good systems. They all have things you can take. At the end of the day, you have to create your own Frankenstein, so to speak, and pull together what you think is most effective. But I think the book that backs it up with data is still the Challenger sale. So try that. Let me know what you think. It's the best I can do. All good stuff. We are in Industry 4.0 now. Things are moving as faster and more complex. As sales managers, we need to manage online and offline to provide more value. So what my man Victor Tan is referring to is that we have entered the age of artificial intelligence, machine learning, which is known as the fourth industrial revolution, right? And this is where we're at right now. And it is those who know how to manage data. I think the salespeople that'll fall by the wayside, even the managers, are those who don't adapt to the new technology. So if you're looking at new CRM systems, you're looking at some of these different automation platforms that use AI, this is where it's going. It's going in that direction, and Victor knows this. It's moving that way. And how do you manage this bridge? Because marketing used to be this silo that was over there. But now, marketing and sales are almost hand in hand. In fact, Victor, you tell me if you agree, is that you're going to start seeing this integration of sales, this real integration of sales and marketing to actually track the customer journey. From the moment they got to the website, looked at anything, maybe a video or read an article, all the way through the cycle of buying something and then following up and upselling them, all that integration, marketing and sales will go hand in glove. And I'm telling you right now, they're going to invent a new title called Smarketing, Operating Officer, which is something that manages both. One of the titles I've seen now is Chief Sales Officer or Chief Sales Operations. So again, these are different things that you're going to start seeing in the market. So good point, Victor. I like that. Happy to be catching you live instead of replay. Big fan here. Cheryl, thank you very much. What else is going? How often as a sales manager should I have one-on-one with your team? You got 10 people. What do you review in the one-on-one? So Mao Gillian. There was a study, and I'm trying to remember the study, and I can't remember the study, but it said on average per month, you should spend somewhere between 3 to 4 hours with your salespeople, right? 3 to 4 hours per month. And they found that the difference began around the 3 or 4 hour mark. Anything less than that wasn't effective. And I think the number was closer to 4, like 3.8 or something like that. So just use 4, it's probably safer. And so that's almost like an hour a week. So that's 10 hours. If you got 10 people, that's 10 hours. And so then the question is, what do you do in that time? And so it's a great question you're asking, because what do you do? So what they found is that some of the best coaching that's going on is that they looked at different types of coaching, like, you one-on-one giving them advice, or you going with them, doing a ride-along, watching the presentation. But what they found is some of the best coaching was letting them work with other people in the team, with other salespeople or other managers, and learn from different people within a group, and it became more of a collaborative effort. In other words, if your salesperson doesn't really understand how marketing works, let them spend some time with marketing for an hour or two just to understand how that part works. Just different parts of the organization to have a well-rounded salesperson. But the way I used to do it, I used to do a lot of ride-alongs, and I used to just sit there biting my tongue, and I would watch presentations, and then afterwards I would give them feedback, and then we go to the next presentation. But that's becoming harder. Now the good thing is that a lot of meetings are now being held virtually, which means that you can actually participate. And if you can't participate, what you can do is have them record that video conference, like on a Zoom call. Just record the video and have them send that to you. And then you can actually do some reviewing. Again, that's more pressure on you, more work. I understand, but that's how I would do it. In other words, I would try to get them on video, see what they're doing, right? Unknown user. Couldn't find the name, so you're just going to go with unknown user. All right. What's the best approach for a customer who knows it all and wants to dictate pricing when the company doesn't allow that? So remember, nobody can dictate pricing to you. Do you know what I mean? I mean, how do I put this in a polite way? When you let somebody bully you on pricing, you know, the problem you're having there is that you don't have enough customers. You don't have enough prospects. Because if you got two people waiting to see you, and that's all you have as far as to work with, you're going to be a little desperate to close, which means they're going to know that, and they're going to probably want to dictate price. But if you had 100 people who wanted to buy, now you don't need to, they can't dictate because you got enough customers. So I often tell people you don't have a pricing problem many times, you have a prospecting problem. You don't have enough customers in your pipeline. Because if your pipeline's full, if somebody doesn't want to pay your price, next. Study after study has shown it isn't price. Now, if you're talking about a commodity product, like, I don't know, a pen or something simple like that, then you have an argument that it's pricing, right? Sometimes people just say, look, I don't need this to be great. I just need a basic product. Give me your best price. But as you move up the complexity chain, as you move up complexity, it isn't about price. It's about the quality of the relationship. By that I mean is you explaining things to them, helping them clarify, navigate all the alternatives. That's what they're looking for. It's not price. So if somebody tells me, this is the price I want, take it or leave it, I'm like, bye, Felicia. It's like, goodbye, I don't need you. Because you're not going to dictate prices to me. You need what I want, and I'm going to sell it to you at this price. Now, know-it-alls, well, there's a bunch of know-it-alls. The thing is, there's several ways to deal with know-it-alls. One way is to let them be in charge. A lot of know-it-alls like to be in charge. But keep in mind, unknown user, that by asking the right questions, you can always control the know-it-all. So when somebody says, no, I know how this works, they say, well, walk me through it because I want to understand. Well, what do you think? Well, can you explain that further? And believe it or not, you're controlling the conversation, and you'll realize that the more questions you ask them, the more likely they don't know as much as they think they know. You're not trying to embarrass them. Well, when I meet a know-it-all, I let them talk because in many cases, they do know it all. And if they do know it all, acknowledge that. I say, well, you seem to know your business. And they say, well, Victor, I know my business. I'm not paying this price. I get that. But then I would say something like this. I said, our product may seem similar to that product over there, but what you're not seeing is the following. Can I explain it to you? I said, sure, explain it to me. And then I can differentiate why I'm different. So if they know it all, great. Don't fight the know-it-alls. If they know it all, let them talk. Because some people just want to talk and then they'll buy. You know, I found that to be true. But keep in mind that at the end of the day, you have to know your product better than your customer. And if you don't know your product better than your customer, then you're always going to be at a disadvantage. So keep that in mind, unknown user. Rod is back. Love this as always. How do you position yourself? Why can't my board for some reason it's not working for me today? It's taking a break. Hold on a second, guys. I have a weird situation going on here with my board. It's trying to connect to somebody's kitchen that's not mine. All right, we'll see if that connects up. But anyway, get rid of that. So, love this as always, Victor. How do you position yourself that things get done and carried out, not too soft, not too hard? No one leaves the room until the decision has been made attitude. Victor, love this as always. How do you position yourself that things get done and carried out, not too soft, not too hard, no one leaves the room? Help me with that one, Rod. Apparently, this is more of a management question. Help me out with that one. And then add a little more sabor on that thing so I can get it. In the meantime, Carlos Alfonso Gonzalez, what SW app or platform would you recommend to do a thorough B2B account plan, especially for large enterprise accounts? Whoa, that's a heavy question. What platform would you recommend to do a thorough B2B account planning? Because it's not so much Carlos, I'm going to have to think about that one. That's a really good question because let me think about that one. I don't have an answer for you. That's a really good question because it's really, when you say thorough B2B account planning, I get what you mean. A thorough B2B account planning from A to Z all the way through and managing key account plannings. Let me give that one some thought. I'm going to take a screenshot of that one because that's a great question. But I will get back to you on that one. In fact, send me an email. Go to my website. Send me an email. I want to answer this question, but let me give it some thought because that's a good question. Great question, man. Thank you. Thank you. Big fan from St. Vincent in the Caribbean. Started working for a security system here company as a sales and marketing executive. What advice can you give me to get more sales from quotations I send? Well, one is, how are you sending Vance Matthias? So how are you sending them? Again, remember, sometimes when you just send bids, people don't respond to bids. So I would need to know how you're trying to close them. So the big tip is, when people say, just send me a price, I never just send pricing. You know what I mean? I try to schedule a time to review the pricing with them. And so if it's a security system, you're probably going to their house, right? I assume you're going to their house just to see how you're going to lay that out. And if you're going to their house, you're going to review it. My question is, do you put the bid together right there and then, or do you go back to your office and then come back and give them a bid? And so I would try to do a bid right there and then close the deal right there and then. If they say, send me the information, right? Once you got the, can you just send me? I said, well, I won't send you the information. I'll set a meeting up with you. And you tell them what the process is. Here's what typically happens. This is after you've done the house review or the office if it's commercial. Then you leave and you come back and you say, look, here's how it works. I'm going to go back. We're going to put some numbers together. And then we're going to set up another meeting so I can walk you through the process. What day works for you? Will Tuesday at 5 o'clock work for you, or would Wednesday be better? So I try to lock down a meeting right there. And if they just said, no, just send me the information, then they're just looking for price. And so I'll usually say, Mr. Client, when somebody tells me just send me price and they don't want to have me walk through it, it's because, one, they're really not interested and they're just looking for the best price, or you simply think it's going to take too long. Which one is it? You know what I mean? Or something like that. You're interested, but you're going to think it's taking too long. Which one is it? And then you have them decide. But what you're trying to do is qualify. Are they just looking for pricing? Again, one of the things I qualify hard is, are you just looking for price? Because if you're looking for price, I don't want to invest a lot of time in this proposal. So keep in mind that if you send it, it goes into a black hole, my friend. It goes into a black hole. Unknown user, you were cool with that answer? Very cool. All right. Victor, how do you quantify value when selling a platform that helps people manage your life and business? Big question, simple answer. I mean, anything can be quantified, right? If you think about it, depending on what platform you're selling them. Remember, so what are you trying to do? I mean, if you think about this, I think it's a B2C situation. Remember, you can typically do three things, right? You can help people psychologically, you can help them financially, or you can help them physically, right? That's it, three things, man, right? So how does your software help them in either of these three cases? If it's helping me psychological, that means I can perform at a higher level. I was at 50%, but after your program, I'm now performing at 90%, which means I'm doing better. And because I'm performing better, my boss is going to give me a raise, or I'm closing more deals, which means I'm going to make what? More money. So being in the right mindset, you'll optimize your time, you'll sell more, and guess what? Financially, you'll be better off. Because you're financially better off, you feel better about yourself, or something like that. And that's how I would tie it. So if I went from 50 to 90%, what does that mean? When I have a conversation with somebody about, how does it help them? When you have somebody like psychologically, to get better, to be more in the game, think about how it helps that person. One is that the person's in the game. So now they're enjoying their job more. They're feeling more satisfied. There's value in that, right? Not tangible, but there's value. Because they're enjoying their job, they're coming home in a better mood. Their disposition is so much better, right? But then things begin to happen. Your boss notices that you're now performing. You're now closing more deals. You're now contacting more people because your mindset has shifted. So now you feel better about yourself, and now it's tangible proof. So I would look for that piece of optimization. When I talk to people who sell health and wellness products, well, then I would start here on the physically. You're helping them because they physically feel better. What happens? They feel better physically, which means they can do more. Because they can do more, they're getting more done, which may lead to some financial benefits. Because they're feeling good about themselves and financially succeeding, psychologically, they're optimized. And so find ways to put a number on those things, right? I would ask the question to you is, Adi, if I can help you produce, from 50, you're at 50 right now. If I can help you produce at 90%, what would that mean for you? And I would say, since you're a salesperson, how many calls do you make per week? So I'm making 20 calls per week. If we could get that number up to like let's say 90% of that, which would be another 18 calls, and we can get almost double that, what do you think that would do for your close rate? What do you think that would do for your commissions? Money in your pocket, things like that. That's how I would go. So use this as a starting point, and it might help. So again, all right, Rod is back. Rod said, one more time, Victor. Appreciate, yes, I meant to manage lead with an iron fist disguised as a cat's palm. Oh, no, dude, I got to give you, you get the horn for that one, man. That is awesome, man. I've never heard that. Manage lead with an iron fist disguised as a cat's palm, i.e., lead by not carrying yourself as a rude manager, but at the same time, not too soft and demand things done. So that is my style of management right there, by the way. I never looked at it that way. I always said you slap them in the head, then you rub their butt to make them feel better, right? Slap them, don't do that again, and rub them. So like in management theory, there's two philosophies, right? In management theory, there's two philosophies, and typically the philosophies are, there's theory X. You all seen theory X, right? Theory X is very command and control. Just do as I say, just get it done, right? Then theory Y is more delegation. I gave you a quota, I gave you territory, go sell, right? And I think there's arguments for both, but then there's, as always, theory what? Z. And that's what you're really talking about, theory Z, right? How do you manage people? And I think the best way to manage people, as you say, with an iron fist and the cat's palm, it disguises the cat's palm, is to let them know what the expectations are and make those expectations tangible. I'll give you an example. So I had salespeople, and I mentioned this, I think, in my last live stream, that, they would, every time we would do a quota review, where they're at with their number, they would give me the whole song and dance for a good 20, 30, 40 minutes, and then they'll show me the numbers. And so I flipped that around, and I said, look, first of all, present your numbers first. He says, I know what your quota is. I want to see where you're at with your number. And then if you're hitting your number, great. If you're not hitting your number, you better have a great story as to why that number isn't being hit. And so that was one way that I held them accountable to the number. Second, this is the iron fist disguised as a cat's palm. I would always say, what can I do to help you become successful? Right now, you're operating at 80%. I need you at 90 to 95. What can I do to help you? What resources can I give you? What support can I give you? And I would have people say, well, Victor, if I had more training, great, you got it. What else do you need? And I would give them everything they need. Here's why I did that, Rod, because I wanted to remove every reasons they gave me for not selling. I removed every objection. So when I talk to salespeople, I try to remove every objection for not selling. If they say, well, Victor, we just don't understand it. We don't have the marketing research. We'll get that for you. What else do you need? You know what I mean? And I give them all the tools. And it's not so much that it's ruling with an iron fist. I think it's ruling by accountability and then holding them there. And then saying, well, you said you were going to do this, and I gave you all the resources and tools. What's missing? And I think that's a nice way where you don't come off as a jerk. We all had an agreement. We knew what the plan was. I asked you if you needed anything. You said no. So why isn't the number there? I'm just trying to understand. And that was always my line. I'm just trying to understand why the number isn't there. And I would never get mad. That's the one thing you have to learn as a manager as you move up, is that you no longer have the right to yell at anybody or raise your voice. You have to be very cool, very calm, and just ask those questions. Tell me, what else can we do? Explain to me why this. What do we need to do? And have them give you the answers. I think that's the best way to management. As you say, iron fist disguised as a cat's palm. That is hilarious as hell, man. That is hilarious. All right, man. Let me know if that helped, Rod. I don't know if that helped you much, but it's a mindset thing. Victor, what advice would you give the young manager who is handling a salesperson with much higher experience and age than them in the industry? I mean, pride is always an issue. I'm just wondering how this could be avoided. Big fan from the Philippines. Ronald, man, I got a story for you. So I became vice president of Latin America, years ago, right? And so I had this guy, his name is Eduardo Guzman. And he was, older gentleman, and he had been in the business for telecom industry for a good 25, 30 years. Here comes a young guy like me saying, hey, we're going to do this differently. And I remember he basically just said, screw you, Victor, I'm not listening to you, right? And I remember we got into a couple of debates, heated debates. If you know Spanish people, Latins, we get into debates. And I finally ended the debate by saying the following word, because he's like, I'm not listening to you. I said, I'll tell you what, Eduardo. This goes back to Rod. What I was telling Rod is that I told him, I said, look, Eduardo, I said, you're convinced that your way is the best way of selling. Fine. I said, just keep in mind, at the end of the quarter, I want my number. I want my number. And if I don't have my number, then you and I have to have another discussion. And he goes, I understand. I'm doing it my way. And 3 months go by, he comes in, he killed his number. Just killed it, just murdered the number, just exceptionally well. I couldn't say anything. Next 3 months, next quarter, he did it again. And he did it again for the first year. But then something interesting happened. After the first year, he was within the top 2 or 3 always. He dropped to like 7 or 8 compared to the other salespeople. Now he came back to me, and well, not directly to me, but he was saying, he really started asking the other salespeople what they were doing. And they were saying, well, we're using Victor's strategy to sell. And all of a sudden, he started changing his strategy, not because I told him, because he saw everybody else was changing their strategy and they were having much more success. So when you got somebody who's very ego-driven, don't fight the ego. Let them have their pride. But also let them know, as I told Rod, have some accountability. All right, you can do it your way. You don't want to use the CRM? That's fine. Just give me my number. And if you don't have my number, then we have a problem. We got to talk about this. And so let me know how that works. It's a very passive-aggressive way of handling that, man. So thank you, man. It's a B2C platform. Thanks, Victor. You're the best. It's a B2C and B2B platform merge. Yep, there's so many ways to quantify the value on that. So yeah, man. Good morning, Tahir. Good to have you with us. Ted Candy, thank you for your inspiration and lessons. Greeting from Jakarta. Thank you, Ted. Appreciate that. Helped indeed. Much appreciated. Love the slap and the stroke. You know, it's one of those things. It's very hard to manage people these days. There was another thing that was in that study that I didn't mention, Ron. I think you might find this interesting, everybody else, is that the average tenure for a salesperson, what do you think it is? The average tenure for a salesperson in a B2B company, what do you think is the average tenure? How long do you think they stay with the company? Give me a number. What do you think? Anybody, give me a number. What do you think? How long do you think they stay with the company? Unknown user says 3 years. What do you think? What do you think? Come on. Come on. Don't be bashful. Throw a number out there. Throw a number out there. What do you think it is? Because I was surprised by this number. I was like, okay, that's a wrinkle. And the number is, drum roll, Glenn comes in at 10 months. Not bad. Elkin comes in at 3 years. TJ, totally negative. Salgado, a half a year. Chris Herrick, 2 years. Very close. Chris and Glenn, you kind of bookended the thing. It's 18 months. Glenn, there you go, 1.5 years. That's it. A year and a half. 18 months. Oh, my man here got it. 18 months. So, TJ, that's okay if you're late, man. So 5 to 10 years. Ron, dude, are you kidding me? 5 to 10 years? Where are you from, man? The Philippines, right? So, no, not here in the U.S. So, think about it, 18 months. Realize what that does, how difficult that is for sales managers. Imagine you have somebody who comes in, and sometimes just to train them. Like, for example, we always talk about time to value. Time to value is when they start contributing over time, and then sometimes, they're like learning, and then finally after, let's say 6 months, they cross that line where they're actually contributing, right? And that's 6 months lost. So that means that they're only staying there 18 months, after a year, they could probably leave. So that's a tough number to accept. And so can you imagine that managers are trying to build their sales teams, train them, and then the churn rate is so violent. And you know why? If you think about it, it makes sense why people are what? Turning over. Getting access to decision makers is that much more difficult, and trying to get people up to speed quickly is difficult, which is why I'm always emphasizing, if you don't have a sales training process, some type of onboarding process for your salespeople, I'm telling you, you're not helping them out. If you don't have an onboarding process, how to bring them on board to help them hit the ground running quickly, then I think you're going to see those 18 months turnover right away. And I'm always blown away how much people spend on, software systems, platform, manufacturing, office space, retail space, or, real estate, whatever it is. And they spend all this millions of dollars. But when it comes to training the salespeople who actually do the actual selling, the frontline salespeople, they don't want to invest that much, and they don't even have an onboarding program. Blows my mind. Blows my mind. So anyway, Cheryl, you had it at 18 months, so good for you. Mao has one more question. What is it, man? If you have a person that after 2 years, she feels that she has been doing the same thing over and over again, how do you motivate them to keep doing it? Man, that's a good one. That is a good one, right? Because what happens is, Mao, one of the things I talked about, I always reference Daniel Pink's book. Mao, this is for you. So Daniel Pink wrote a book called Drive, right? By Daniel Pink. Last name Pink, right? Mao, and he wrote a book. And then what he talked about is what you're kind of alluding to here. He says, people are motivated by 3 things. And he says, one is they're motivated by autonomy. They like the freedom to do their own thing, right? That was the big one. The second thing they're motivated by is they want purpose. And then the third thing is they want to grow, right? So those 3 things. Autonomy, let me do what I want. Purpose, why am I doing it? And growth. And what you're saying is that this person is not what? Growing right there. And that's a tough one because now, the purpose could start diminishing. They got the autonomy, but the purpose may not be there. And so my question back to you would be is, what does she want to do? If after 2 years she's doing something, she's very good at it, is there any way we can bring somebody in under her so she can train, so she can move up if she's that good and you don't want to lose her? The worst thing you can do is acknowledge it and not do anything about it. I think you know this already. But I think you have a challenge on your hand because, again, if and I'll bring the question back up, how do you motivate them to keep doing it? You're going to have to bring somebody, they want to grow, and if you're not letting them grow, they're going to leave. I think that's the tough part. So, sorry, man. I don't have a better answer than that. I think you got to give them opportunities. Maybe there's another aspect of growth that you can look at, Mao. Like maybe, there's some additional training that you can give her that still fits within that job description. So, for example, and I'm making things up right now. So let's say she's in marketing. So maybe you can send her to some type of marketing automation software class or something that teaches her about automating how to do her job more efficiently or better. And maybe expand her job role just a little bit, just to give her a little bit of room to grow. And that might satisfy her. So give that some thought. Let me know what you think of my answer. Did I totally hose that one or does that make sense? Let me know. But it's a great question. That's a really good question, actually. How do I deal with a manager that sets expectations, then changes the expectations without voicing the new expectations and holds us accountable and gets mad if we don't meet those expectations? Craig, I would quit, man. I would quit. I would just quit. Do you know what I mean? It's like they keep moving the goalpost, right? And so, I would quit. I mean, I don't know how else to put that. I don't have a soft answer for that. I mean, let me be diplomatic. Let me try to be diplomatic here, Craig. And I'm not laughing at your situation. It's just that I've seen people do this and it blows my mind that they do this to salespeople. They change the numbers. Because rule number 1 in managing salespeople, never mess with their compensation plans, right? And that means don't move the quota numbers so they make less money. Just don't mess with their compensation plan. If you're going to mess with the compensation plan, always improve it, never diminish it. And so I've seen managers do this and, it's just silly because they just hurt themselves. People leave the company. And so one of the things you can do is, can you get it in writing and just say, no, this is what we agreed on. That's the number we agreed on. And so, you know what I mean? We used to have to sign when I worked with a company that got bought out by Siemens, we always signed at the end of the year, going into the new year, we always signed a new contract. Now, the contract wasn't like, hey, you're still going to work for us. Nothing to do with that. It was a contract saying, okay, here's what the agreed upon quota is, and this is what you're going to have to do per quarter, because sometimes it wasn't 25, 25, 25, 25%. Sometimes it was like, first quarter, you're going to have to do 30%, then 20%, then another 30%. You get the idea. And so then we would have to agree to a number. We would have to sign off on our territories. That's my territory. These are the products I'll be selling. And so that was like a 1 or 2 page contract. And so that was for the whole year. So we couldn't change it. They couldn't change it. But if somebody does that and then holds you accountable after doing that, it's an abusive relationship. And I hate to put it that way, but it's an abusive relationship. And if you're good at selling, which I'm going to have to believe you are, then why not go somewhere else? if you're good at selling, you can get a job somewhere else. You'd be amazed how much more money you can make. Right now, the market is looking for great salespeople. That could be you. So I think when people do that, that's an abusive relationship. So let me know what you think of that answer, man. I love to hear your feedback on that one. How do you spot the magic place when sales rep is on the verge of giving up, but he or she just might be an inch from the gold mine? Man, who knows on that one? That's too hard. You know what I was blown away with though, Rod? I interviewed a company that uses AI, machine learning, data analytics, to study people on who would be successful and not. And this is one of my podcasts. I don't know which one it is off the top of my head. And I think the company was, it was Chorus.ai. I think it was the company. But they were able to predict, because I said, well, how long do you know if a salesperson, how long do you think it takes you to determine whether a salesperson is going to be successful or not, right? And so I'm thinking, because he turned around and said, what do you think, Victor? I said, well, I don't know. I'm thinking 90 days, safely 90 days. He says, Victor, what if I told you that I can tell you with a 90, I think it was like 96, 97% certainty if a salesperson was going to be successful. It didn't take me 90 days. I said, well, how long does it take? You said 17 days. 17. 17. 17. So it takes me 17 days. Based on our data analytics, we'll know within the first 17 days whether that salesperson is going to make it or not, because they're using data. And I think, Rod, the question you're asking me is more the gut feel, what do we think? And I think where the market's moving in the future is AI machine learning, where we're going to be able to capture. I don't know if you've really thought about this, but you're going to have CRM systems, right, that are going to merge with, I'll just call them marketing automation platforms, right? All this, these two are going to merge. Somewhere down here is going to be an ERP system. Everything's going to merge into this massive data warehouse. And what's going to happen is that you're going to be putting in data from everything. We're talking everything on social media from that client will go in there and be analyzed. Every conversation you have. Salesforce just released a new application that lets you record the conversation, maybe even record this video, and then the machine learning will pull the audio from this video and turn it into data and actually push it into the CRM to give it value, to determine whether the client is serious or not based on the conversation. So in other words, if I'm talking to you as a potential client, I'm going to ask you key questions, and based on your response, the machine is going to be able to determine whether you're kind of a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So data is going to be coming in from everywhere. Emails, right? Again, social media, all this stuff's going to be coming in, and this is going to be analyzing the data and telling you how close you are to that gold mine. That is the future. And that's why you're seeing this massive movement right now. I think it was Victor Tan who talked about the fourth industrial revolution. We're in it, man. We're going to get away from gut feel, anecdotal evidence. What do you think? Gut instinct. We're going to go with big data. And what's happening now is all this data is now being pushed on. There's structured data, which is easy, right? Columns and rows. Unstructured data, like voice and video, are now being pulled in. And this data is now being used to determine whether a deal is going to close or not. It's amazing stuff what's happening now. So that would be my answer. Other than that, I don't know. Mia, how could you say 6 years for a salesperson? Wow, you got some committed people over there. All right. Craig, I started. Okay, you're talking to Craig right there. Back to this person again. She wants to manage people. She feels that she can do more than sale. I sent her on a Feb to open a new office in Mexico, and she was going to manage people, but because of COVID, everything is frozen. So maybe now would be a good time to actually just, help her with her management skills. Give her some management courses, maybe do some small management tasks, because she might be, your next sales management superstar, man. So, find a way to nurture that. Find a way. Sparrow's tail. Hi, Victor. Love the content as always. How can we as salespeople sell and prospect during COVID-19 without coming across as callous money grubbers? Much love from California. Well, I think people know you're going to sell anyway, so I was like, I'm selling something. I think it's I did this program. It's in my, I got to highlight the Sales Velocity Academy. I have something called the No Touch Selling Program, where I talk about how do you sell remotely. And one of the things I talk about in there, Sparrow's Tail, is how do you develop this cadence, right? This way of approaching the customer, without, as you say, coming across as money hungry. And so what customers want today is the last thing they want from you is to call them up. Well, I hope you're doing well during these times. I hope you guys are surviving. I just called to check in to see how you're doing. Nobody really wants that. What they want from you is that, look, I've looked at your business because I'm working with companies who are in your business, and we're finding certain things that are helping them close more deals or sell more. Love to get on a Zoom call with you for 5 or 10 minutes just to walk you through this. Do you have the time? Now notice, that's upfront value. I'm letting them know I'm working with other companies who are using our product or service and they're being very successful. And I just want to share with you on a Zoom call, 5, 10 minutes, what they're doing that you might be interested in. To me, that is like from the heart, sincere approach. And you don't come across as money hungry or money grubbing, as you put it. And so give that some thought. Can you leverage what you're doing with other people, other companies, and then bring it to that company? And be very straightforward. I said, look, I've been thinking about your problem. I've done some research. I've given it some thought. I've got a couple ideas that I think might help your business, and it'll help our business as well. And I think there's a great win-win. Do you have 5 or 10 minutes to get on a call? I mean, that to me is like sincere selling in this time. So let me know what you think of that answer. My man Rod says, what did you say here, Rod? Sounds mind-blowing. What would be the best AI niche to tackle? There is no AI niche to tackle. AI is everywhere. It's in your Alexa. It's in your phone. It's everywhere. And so right now it's a matter of how are companies actually pulling all that data in and then wrangling it. If you go back to the chart, the study from that webinar, and it talked about that the managers now have about 4.2 dashboards to look at. All that dashboard is data analytics, right? What deals are going to close? What deals are in the pipeline? Which ones which ones should we focus on? Which ones should we prioritize? That's where all that data is going, man. They're collecting all this stuff. I'm telling you, we're living through interesting times right now, and a lot of salespeople are going to be left in the dust because they haven't figured this out. As Victor Tan said, man, fourth industrial revolution, we're in it, and some people are still not aware of what's going on. So keep that in mind. Thank you. It's not just the comp plan, but many other things in it as well. I hear you, Craig. I'm feeling your pain, man. I'm not being facetious or joking about that. I feel your pain. I've been in situations where I had one VP of sales just yank a territory from me and give it to somebody else. And I was called in literally, and I was told that I no longer had the territory after I worked it for 1.5 years, and I knew that the following year was going to be gangbusters, and he gave it away to somebody else. And I never understood why. Was it favoritism? I don't know. But I remember within 3 months, I was gone. Because if they did that to me once, which is always the toughest thing, to do it the first time, they're going to do it to you again. So I feel for you, man. Good luck, man. Good luck. Good luck. All right. Thanks so much, Victor. I will practice some pitches in my car on the way home, man. There you go, man. Like I said, it's just a matter of that 5G in sales. Yeah, 5G, fry your brain that whole bit. Hey, man, it's going to come one way or another. 5G is coming, infrastructure, more, but it's going to take a while for this stuff to roll out. I think the 5G is being overhyped right now, but it's going to take so long to roll all that stuff out to manage all that growth. And so on the management side, since we're talking about managers today, I was asked today, I was doing a podcast interview, and the guy asked me, he said, Victor, who's your best leader that you've met? What great leader have you met? And I told a story about this guy named Tom. And Tom was the first person that showed me, I call Theory Z love, right? Which I talked about earlier. Theory X, command and control. Theory Y, total delegation. And he was like Theory Z. He was kind of in the middle. And his philosophy was all about accountability. That's where I learned it from. And his whole thing was that I hired you to do a job, Victor. I mean, he literally said this to me one time. I said, I hire you and I'm paying you a lot of money. Why would I want to do your job? That's what I hired you for. And I've always loved that about his attitude, because the story I tell is that I remember I did a bid, and it was like a $1.2, $1.3 million bid, right? And it was my first one with the company as an application engineer. And I went in there and I showed him the design, gave him the 3-ring binder. He looked at the executive summary, then flipped it all the way to the back, looked at the price, right? And then he looks at me, he goes, is it correct? Like, is the bid, is it correct? Did you double check it? And I go, yeah. There's that hesitation. Yeah, I did. Pulled out his pen, signed the deal. Handed it right back. I walked out of the office and it was pure terror because I was like, oh my God, he actually signed it. I thought he was going to review it, make some comments, and then I'd have another shot at it. No, he signed it. And I remember I told him the story later about how nervous I was, and that's what he told me. I hired you for a reason, and that was for you to do your job. That's why we're paying you a lot of money. And so I think accountability is the big piece here when it comes to managing salespeople. And if you have struggling salespeople, do you have a blueprint for them? Right? And I like what Miles bringing up is like, you have people who are doing well, but they feel like they're not growing. And we never talk about that, which is why I'm glad he brought it up, because we never talk about how do we, put people on a career path where they feel like they're growing within a company so they don't leave. Because retention is a big key to winning in this market, and it's one of the big challenges a lot of managers face. So on that note, I think I'm going to wrap up. We've been on here for about an hour, 10 minutes. We've talked enough about management. And again, if you haven't checked out the Sales Velocity Academy, check that out. And don't forget to subscribe so you'll get the YouTube thing. There's usually that little bell thing where subscribe. If you hit the bell, you'll get the notification. And we will see you on Thursday. What is the topic for Thursday? I have no idea, but I'll make sure to push something out to let you guys know what's going on. Anyway, have a good night. And for some of you, have a